Let's get started.
Howdy, welcome back to another fun-filled episode of the Unknown Secrets of Internet Marketing. I'm your host, Matt Bertram. We've been bringing on some fantastic guests. I am remote, so if there are any glitches or sound issues, please, I apologize ahead of time. But I think you'll love what we're going to be talking about. It's not something we've talked about a lot on this podcast yet, but we've indirectly talked about the buyer's journey and what's happening with the buyer's journey and how that's changing and how to measure things. And there's a term called MUM, Multitask Unified Model. The way search online is changing. Like, I don't even know if Google's really a search engine. The analogy I heard is it used to be like the librarian that you would go to and it would tell you, hey, go check this out over there. And now you go to the librarian and it just gives you the answer. And so everybody's starting to optimize for the answer engine. SEO's got a lot of different like terms. Things are changing, and I wanted to bring somebody that's an expert on to really talk about that. Cindy Krum with Mobile Moxie. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks very much for having me.
We met at SEO conference, and you actually grew up down the street from me, and that it's such a small world. You're now based out of Denver, but this world, as everybody transverses, I just even remember, and I know that this is not the point of the podcast, but the world's so much smaller today. Like, I remember calling cards. Like if someone lived near you, you would have to do a calling card to talk to them and schedule everything, and mobile phones and how people are searching online is absolutely changed. And how people search online, we used to talk about like a standardized funnel, right? And it was very linear that you would go from here to there, to there, to there. And, you know, I remember reading a Google study where that said it kind of looked like a atom or something. Like people would come out, come back to the center, come out, come back to the center. And then I've seen those images where it's like a squirrely line. For those of you listening, I don't have the image pulled up, so don't worry. But it's like, you know, they go back, they get distracted, they come back, and it's not a linear funnel. And now with, you know, LLMs and, you know, MUM, like everything's changed. And I would love to kind of get your perspective on, like, maybe you define for the audience what MUM is, like, and like how it's changing stuff. And we can just start the conversation there.
Sure. So MUM is something that Google started talking about back around 2017, 2018, as I recall. And it was right around or just after mobile first indexing started rolling out. And the abbreviation or the acronym stands for Multitask Unified Model, which doesn't really mean anything. Those are just a bunch of words. But a lot of people remember it as multimodal unified model. And that's kind of more representative, because when Google announced MUM, the announcement talked about this language model that didn't just use text. It used images and videos and maps and statistics and facts and all of those other things. And it could combine those into this unified model. And so the multitask part is really checking all of those different kinds of assets to put them together into a model where the search engine can understand a topic in a more multidimensional way and understand what is the right kind of experience that the user wants when it's searching for this this topic. So it kind of takes, you know, we went from having entities, keywords, and then we got into entities, which were kind of groups of keywords and language agnostic keywords. And then we have journeys. And journeys are kind of like all of the things you could do with an entity. And that's what Google was trying to map. So that's kind of it. But then they've taken it a whole lot further in terms of the way Google is talking about search these days versus how they used to. And a lot of it does seem to incorporate these MUM concepts.
You know, you talked about like the different customer journeys. That was one of the things that really got my ears to perk up, is based upon the journey, like the bucket they fall into and the typical like I mean, they mapped out, right, like how you used to buy a car or a computer online and what that process would look like. But now they have enough data to figure out what these typical buckets are. And when they drop you in that bucket, that's going to be representative of the search. So it's not just all the searches that are out there based on that keyword or that entity, but it kind of falls you into that journey.
Yeah.
How, Cindy, does that affect, like, does that give small businesses a stronger opportunity to rank? Because I'm concerned with the bifurcation of all the things you have to do online to show up,
Yeah.
uh, that small companies can't compete. Like, they have the GNB or the GDP, but beyond that, now to show up, I feel like it's a lot harder to do, and you gotta have a lot more plates spinning and things working to reach these different things, unless you built a community. And I think everything we've talked about on the podcast, going back to a very laser focused community centric model for small businesses. I mean, how would they deal with something like that with these changes?
Yeah, I think that you're right. And I think that there is a lot of good reason to worry about smaller businesses and how they're going to compete, especially in Google, getting the traffic that they maybe used to get, because it is true that bigger brands are getting a larger share of the traffic. And for some kinds of businesses, it is getting much harder to show up in search results. So with journeys, what Google talks about, or what they originally talked about, was what they called micro moments. And this was aligned with kind of Google's move towards mobile, and they called them micro, aka like small. And this was kind of, I think, micro moments they started talking about before mobile first indexing started rolling out. And what those were they said when people are on their phone, they're more action oriented, and their actions fall into one of these four things. And it was, I want to know, I want to go, I want to do, I want to buy. And I think that someone's told me that they later added another micro moment. I'm not sure about that. But what's interesting is that those four micro moments fall neatly into Google properties that have been well monetized, or at least have been attempted to monetize. So I want to know is regular search. I want to go is maps. I want to do ends up being YouTube. And I want to buy is Merchant Center. And of course, we've seen massive progression and evolution of how Google has monetized those properties for themselves, to make them kind of profit centers where they can make money by driving more searches and selling PPC ads in the searches. But then if they want to keep making money, then they can rank and send searchers to other properties that they've also monetized, because obviously all of those properties are owned by Alphabet. So, they benefit either way. And then the other thing to know is that even when Google isn't actually making money on a transaction or an ad or something like that, they're making something monetizable, which is they're collecting data and that they can monetize later. And so all of the behavior that they're capturing through Chrome about us as we search is allowing them to do things like create the AI that now runs PMAX and all of the cohort modeling and journey modeling that makes PPC much more profitable. Like, they needed the data of what people want to make that a profitable solution for advertisers.
I love how they even have added like the CAPTCHAs to training labeling data for you, right? So I didn't know that until I don't remember when someone shared that with me, is that's what they're doing, right? And they're training their before Tesla, their self-driving cars, and like all this data is super valuable. I remember, was it Google that bought, it was like a temperature company. Did they buy the Nest or something like that?
Yeah.
I think they bought, I could have this wrong. Alphabet buys a bunch of stuff. I think they bought Nest. And the reason they bought that is it was all this digitized temperature data that they could use. They were buying for the data, not necessarily for the cool Apple looking tool. That's probably a nice add-on, but everything, data is the new oil. I know that that's been talked about. I think it's starting to come to the forefront with all these LLMs and these models now. Like, I think people had said that, but there was a lot of manual effort that had to be done to label all this kind of data. And Google's been capturing and labeling data for so long. And that's why on these ads, you turn them on, you set up your parameters, and over time, it's just like a heat-seeking missile, and it finds your right type of person. I also know that Google started moving, like really pushing in their last announcement, e-commerce, like on the site, because they're not going to drive them necessarily off the site. They're going to do the transaction there. And then they're leaning into YouTube really big. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to add additional ads to YouTube, because YouTube, if you don't pay for the subscription, are already, I can't even handle it. I had to pay to the subscription model to not get ads every 10 seconds. But I mean, what can you speak to of where the general market's going, and maybe how companies need to be thinking about this journey and how to track it?
Sure. So Google has updated how they're talking about micro moments, and they don't use that phraseology anymore. Most recently, they've published some articles about the 4 S's of search. And those are stream, scroll, search, and shop, or the 4 S's of discovery, or something like that, or brand awareness, or whatever. So it's those 4 S's: stream, scroll, search, and shop. And those also fit with properties that Google has, right? Stream is YouTube, scroll is discover, search is regular search, and shop is merchant center. So again, Google is telling marketers that this is how journeys happen, that people bounce from these 4 S's while they're on a brand discovery or product discovery or a search and discovery process, and that if you want to be seen, you need to be potentially in all of these, or at least you need to map out where people are doing these activities in the discovery process. And they give even an example. I think they don't call it journey mapping, but they call it some other mapping, like awareness mapping or something like that. And they say, figure out, what % of your traffic is coming from each of the 4 S's in early discovery, mid, and then end of funnel, and make a graph. And they show you how to make the graph. So what that tells me about Google's vision of the world digitally is that successful brands are not just banking on one website to do all the work. And this is what you were alluding to, is that you kind of, a lot of SEOs right now are saying you have to be everywhere. And that sounds really overwhelming to small business owners. And so I think what Google is kind of trying to subtly hint at is you don't have to be everywhere, like full-time 100%. You have to be where your users are and where they're looking for you in their normal journey, and give them the kind of content they want for that particular product or service at the point when they want it. So I think that's their advice of, like, you don't have to do everything 100%. We want you to be a multifaceted business that isn't just, pumping out loads and loads of kind of light, fluffy, boring content every week on your website, but creating a community, like you said, and creating the community and engaging with your community where they are already.
So Cindy, it's interesting. Like, if you look at like the major gold standard tools that measure a lot of keyword tracking, they typically broke content up into, informational, transactional, commercial, and navigational, I think is the other one. And most websites were heavily, or brands, SEOs, you name it, it was all about the brand discovery at the top of the funnel, right? So it was like really heavily informational searches. The direction from Google that I saw in one of their I don't know exactly where it was, but I believe it came from Google. They really want you to be 25, 25, 25, 25. And, if you have a online business or other things, maybe there's a carve out for that navigational search. And what we see with a lot of clients is they don't have as much transactional search at the bottom of the funnel. And that transactional search, the comparisons, you're trying to make a decision, is across the internet. And so, the traffic, what Rand Fishkin said, based on a number of his slides, I saw him at a couple SEO conferences, is like traffic's been cut in half or more than half. And so, you need to help the LLMs understand the bottom of the funnel transactional content that you can control on your website, and listicles, and there's other things. And what I'm seeing from what you're saying, what Google's saying is no one's really mapping that one for one, right? It's like everybody's got their own ranking factors that they're using. And then there's like, this is what Google wants you to do. And then you're trying to have to connect the dots there. I mean, what are your thoughts around that just in the market in general?
Yeah, I think at large, that is kind of what we're trying to do, is connect the dots. But I think that the way that we're all thinking about SEO and search as a whole right now is probably going to need to change soon, because if you think about what Google's been investing in marketing towards recently, it's AI mode.
Yep.
And then all of the AI stuff in the paid side of the house. AI mode, and even, recently, I think it was a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, Google added AI summaries to Google Discover. And this was something that I kind of predicted at SEO Week, was I said, at that point, Google had just internationalized SEO or Google Discover, and made some changes towards making it more international. And I said, this is not an accident. And they've just rolled out AI mode. Now they're making Google Discover international. AI mode is rolling out internationally. This seems like it goes together. And then, of course, they just added the AI summaries to Google Discover, and they added AI mode as an option on the main page of Google. And I think we're gonna see more convergence, where potentially AI mode and Google Discover combine, or at least are going to test that, is my guess. And the reason that's important is that Google Discover has always been personalized to not just a cohort, but a person, right? And their own individual interests. And I think that AI mode, if it's going to be successful, they're probably going to try and go really personalized. And that's why it's, in the AI options, you're getting the chat with Gemini stuff, because it's trying to understand you and your decision-making process and what you in particular want and are looking for. So if I have a history of consistently, shopping for groceries on the internet and looking for the best price on paper towels, it's going to stop showing me the most expensive paper towels. And it's just going to show me the best deals, potentially. So the idea and the takeaway is, yes, we're not going to be able to optimize for you or me, but we're going to have to understand our customers on a very deeper level and understand why our brand sticks out to them, as opposed to the other ones. So if all I want is the cheapest paper towels out there, and it's showing me deluxe paper towels, I'm going to have a bad experience. So if you're trying to talk to the LLMs and you sell cheap paper towels, what you need to say is, our paper towels, are super cheap. We know you're just using half of it and throwing the rest away anyway. You don't need the super heavy, bulky, whatever. Buy these, save money. It's better for the planet. And then you're going to make me feel good about my decision to buy cheap paper towels. Stuff like that, where it's not just listing product like basic specs, but it's listing more deeper benefits that'll resonate with a buyer when they're making a final decision.
So I'm hearing, and I've heard this with in other conversations, is we have to go so much deeper on the ideal target persona than what we think, and doing additional research. There's tools out there like Rand Fishkin's tool that like it really opens it up. Of like where your people are at, what they might be looking at, what are the associations, because it's going to be so personalized to you. And I've seen some customer journey maps where, you know, if you're not speaking to that person's value structure or what they've done historically, even if you're ranking for that keyword, you might not show up in that journey at all. And so it's again getting laser focused, like you said, on that target persona. So the question that I ask, and I think we've been kind of dancing around it, is okay, like I understand that it's changing. I understand I need to know this better, but how do I measure this? Like, like how do I see how I'm doing? And I've hear a lot of people doing like manual searches, and that's not a very unified way to see what an agnostic look of what other people might be searching for, because again, all your searches are now customized to you. And I would even say, which I don't have complete clarity on, this is my assumption, but when you go to incognito mode in Google, when Google said, hey, you can do not follow links and we're still going to look at them, I feel like the same thing is the case for incognito, because your incognito, my incognito is going to be different. What is that based on? Well, where we are geographically, maybe, and our user preferences. And so, you know, that's where I think everything starts to unravel for people that are trying to rank in search. Is how do you measure all this stuff? The current set of tools that are available today are not what we need for AI mode and MUM. And I know that there's a couple people out there that are trying to stand up tools, but the majority of the industry right now is still playing the old game.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a great answer to the question, honestly, because you're right. The industry is still playing the old game, because the idea of summarizing everything that's happening in everyone's private AI chat conversations is just so monumental and hard. There's this, not allegory, but there's this, what do you call it? A story that tells...
Analogy? Yeah.
It's like a fable, more.
Oh, fable. I love fables. All right, let's do it.
But there's this fable, and I don't even know the name, but it's about a map maker, and the king of the region has a contest for the map makers to see who can make the best map of the region. And this one guy goes crazy and wants to make the best map. So he makes the most detailed map because he thinks detail is the best. And so he makes the most detailed map possible. And it ends up that the map is the same size as the territory, and it covers the territory and kills everyone, basically. So not helpful, right? Like, so you've got to know like when to summarize and when to omit details, right? But the problem is when things get so detailed and so deep down and individualized, it's really hard to summarize that and know what's important. And so I think we're going to be ending, I think for a while, and maybe, for a long time, we're going to be leaning harder on basic query statistics rather than success statistics or visibility statistics. And we might have generic visibility, share of voice kinds of statistics, but not like you showed up for these 8 billion queries, because the queries are all going to be so different. And they're going to be strings of queries in a conversation, not a single keyword or not a single keyword phrase. They're going to be in a deep context that you're not going to be able to tease out. And so that makes our job harder. But that's why Google needs the journey modeling, is because in a conversational search, they need to understand what the next most likely question is going to be. And you can already see them using search to further train their journey models, right? Like if you think about every time you see a people also ask, that's a prompt to say, hey, your question was kind of vague. Did you really mean this? And when they click on a people also ask, you're saying, yeah, when I searched for that, what I really meant was this, right? And it's a bit of a deeper iteration on the question. It's not the same level, it's slightly deeper, right? And then they'll keep going a little bit deeper. Okay, now you have that. Do you also need this? Do you also need this? And so they're seeing what users click to get a model of, when someone searches for this, where they really want to end up is there.
So it feels like we're going back to like old school marketing, right? Where you're measuring like uplift and you're doing something and you're seeing, okay, my impression count's higher. Did that produce over X period of time, more leads, more revenue, right? And I mean, you can measure stuff that's happening on a website, but how do people wrap around their minds, because we've trained them for so long, right? Like you're at the top of the rankings for X amount of these things, like you need to track these keywords. Like how do you follow the analytics, I guess?
I think like I said, like I don't think there's a great answer. I think there are a lot of people trying to solve this problem. I think we're going to need to change KPIs. What you said about community building is huge. I think that's really kind of the sneaky way to get around having to not have data, is when you build a community, you can have real engagement data and real interactions with your customers. And that not only helps your brand resonate better in a more long-term way, but gives you a lot of more data about them, more opportunities to re-engage them and stuff like that. And then there are also, I think that we might see a shift towards more active engagement metrics, things like comments on a post or a video or a and when I say post, I mean like a social media post, not a blog post necessarily. I think we're going to see a decrease in, I hope we're going to see a decrease in people just like pumping out the same boring website content. And it's going to shift to these kind of multi-channel distributions that represent the brand as a whole across the internet, where your website is just, for a while, people have said your website should just be one part of your marketing, but the other parts were like your website and your emails and offline. But now I think it's like your website, your Instagram, your TikTok, your LinkedIn, and stuff like that, because the LLMs, what they are looking for is not just on your website. And if you just have a website, even if it's great, it's not enough. To convince the LLMs that you're good, you need to be the places where the LLMs are looking. And what LLMs, SEOs keep saying that LLMs love novelty, and they like novelty. They like to learn new things, but what they love is consistency. And if they see a consistent message across your brand from you and other people, that you're engaged, that you're the best, that you're the cheapest, that you're the whateverist, then they believe it.
So the thing that I think about when you shift from like website content to social media content is, which I would, if you have any data or can point me in the right direction, it would be great, because I don't know the answer. The decay rate on social media posts, okay, like for a visual user is, 4 to 6 hours maybe, right? And so when I hear you need to be on social media, like I know people that are very big on Instagram or TikTok, and they have to continue to produce these videos because they only have so much life in them. There are some kind of information architecture structures like Reddit and things like that, G&B, where you can grab some of that stuff. But I wonder how far, and the LLMs, I did see some data that said on a blog post on average, they only look back about 10 months. So I'm wondering, there's so much noise on LinkedIn right now, but there's a lot of great stuff that people are posting. I wonder if you've seen anything about the decay rates for LLMs going further and reading social media posts, right? Because if you're building out the hashtags and you're setting that in motion, is it just the life cycle of the post, or is there, more runway to to speak to the LLMs. And again, right, I do need to say it, the LLMs are only, 1 to 3% of search still, right? So it's not that big of a deal, but we've even shifted at our agency to offering more of a social media as a SEO company, because it's kind of like left arm, right arm, like the full body of your brand, like building your brand online. You need to incorporate some of those things. And I think historically, when I would talk to other SEOs, SEO was a silo and social media was a silo, but there's a big merger happening. I don't know if anything I said you can kind of speak to it, but I'm just talking out loud now because I agree with you that social media shouldn't replace, being search optimized, but what is a search engine now? And then as people move over to AI mode, which I think AI overviews for me was a way to keep people in the old search until they get everything else set up. Um, you might have a different perspective on that. These other LLMs, like when I started using LLMs pretty aggressively, like I go to Google and a website to do a final check on something, but a lot of my research is done on social media or what are other people saying, reviews. Yeah, and that engagement rate, I have seen data that 30% of the time that people spend on social media is now reading comments, and so I think that that's really, really important. But for a business, whether it be a big brand or a little brand, because big brands, you got to go through legal, or maybe you have some executive that people are ghostwriting for potentially because they can't spend all day on social media. And then the smaller brands, well, they're trying to run a business and they don't have enough people to do it. Like you got to pump out a ton of content to just keep up. And it's really quite noisy. I like your idea of going back to really focusing on those new micro moments, whatever they're called. I remember micro moments. So I can't even say GDP without thinking about it. Like I still say GMB, like it's ingrained in my brain, but
it's not GDP, it's GBP.
And I'm dyslexic, I'll say that. So sorry to everybody. Hopefully they know what I'm talking about. But this just looks to be, Cindy, a monumental task for any brand or any business to do. Now, I do think all of these things have been said over and over again. You should be doing all these things, but now it's kind of like, it's not like a bonus. It's like a necessary thing that you need to be doing to be able to compete. What is the world going to look like, in another 18 months?
Yeah, I think this is now table stakes for SEO. This is what you need to be a good SEO, is to be doing this kind of, cross-platform optimization. They used to call it barnacle SEO, and it does still have that benefit where if you're struggling to rank your blog on XYZ keyword, you might have an easier time ranking a YouTube video on that keyword or an Instagram post on that keyword. And I think that has not gone away. Mm-hmm. That may even have doubled down now that Google is ranking UGC, forum content, and whatever with more preference, and big brands with more preference, right? Like, so it's a really, I think, solid strategy. But I think that, you're right that it's this huge commitment. But if you think about how many blog posts people were pumping out that were kind of like mid quality, whatever, I think the idea is, and there's someone who talks about this a lot, Ross Simmons, the coolest cool on Twitter, one of my favorites. And he talks about like not creating, so many blog posts all the time, but creating like better ones and then getting the distribution really right. And if you spend, 5 hours writing the blog post, you need to spend, and I don't remember his math, but let's say if you spend 5 hours writing it, you need to spend 10 hours doing the distribution. And I think that is going to go even further. So let's say if you're a small company or even a big company, let's say you're a big company and you have to get a concept approved by legal and that takes months. So you have to plan out your content way in advance. You do one 10x piece, but then you get the distribution of that 10x piece right. Then you break it up into a million different shorts and videos and stills for Instagram and stories and reels, and put it everywhere where it's already, the whole major concept has been pre-approved. You're not actually creating new stuff. You're creating one big thing and then breaking it out and allowing the smaller pieces. So the one piece, gets you links, gets you authority from people who already know who you are and are aware of you. The smaller pieces feed the journey of people who are still in the discovery phase to get to you, right?
Yeah, I feel like you need to produce one like pillar piece of content and then splinter it out. Ryan Dice, his social media marketing course, which now all that stuff, he's like just giving it all away because everything's changing. Really explained to me conceptually many years ago about taking that piece of content. And I haven't heard the word Barnacle SBO before. I got to look that up. That's really cool. It makes a lot of sense. I haven't heard that.
The bigger site, and then you rank, kind of by proxy.
Yeah, we did that, but I never heard it called that. That's really cool. That should be a name for a company.
Rand called it that for years.
So what that makes me think is like, people are just churning out content, right? And you said that the mid quality content, people are just throwing something in ChatGPT and posting it. Like you're like, the bar is coming up, but it's still like, that's the bare minimum. And it's really that really high quality content. Where I see the stuff where it's original research and, something different that is novel that people might not know about, but is helpful. So, I mean, where's the balance between volume and quality? And I mean, it's very hard to get both of those off the charts for any business. And going back to what you said before, what are the things that you've seen that maybe, because I think LLMs are just modeling very intelligent people of looking for stuff online and getting a bunch of different resources and coming up with, a conclusion. Like, how do people need to be thinking about this in a framework like high quality sites or, certain types of content that map to those different decision points? I mean, what would be a SEO plan for, I don't know, pick any company and like, let's just do a walkthrough of what that might look like. Like, I love the idea of getting that concept approved and splintering it. But I just still think, how many times can you post about that same type of thing from a different angle, right? If you got a 4 to 6 hour window on social media.
Why do you say 4 to 6 hour window? Tell me more about that.
So from what I've seen of how the algorithms work, like if you post on Facebook or LinkedIn, unless through the initial audition period, you get some really high engagement, those posts will get kind of down indexed. And not to say that if not a big influencer reposted or comments on it, it's never going to get the trajectory or reach of another post. And so if we have that initial concept that we've broken apart into all these different things and we post that, and maybe we post it from a couple of different angles, tell that story, like how many times can you recycle that type of content before you need something new? Because like you made me think maybe we just do one really, really good piece of content that goes viral versus a bunch of mediocre content.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah.
That's the idea. And then you're posting, when you're breaking it into the smaller pieces and posting it across the web, it's going to resonate, and you'll learn this. It'll resonate in some communities better than others. And so then you learn what that community likes, and then you do slightly different things if a different community likes different stuff, right? And you get to fine tune your messaging and how you repurpose content for the different audiences in the different places. Or you say, like, this isn't working. This channel isn't working. We're going to de-emphasize that. But I think like one of the reasons I like Ross's model is like, how long did you spend on it? Create a multiplier of that's how long you should be repurposing it or how much effort you should spend on distributing it. Creating a model like that for your own business, because it's going to be different for everyone, and it's going to be different with the level of effort you put in the first place, right? If you put in 5 minutes, then spending 10 minutes to distribute it is fine. Spending 30 minutes to distribute it is fine. But yeah, I think it'll be different depending on the content and depending on what your availability is and what the depth you can go on the initial idea in the first place. And then you've just got to measure the success and the ROI, right? So I don't think there's going to be one specific answer for everyone. But the idea, so I've totally shifted how I think about digital marketing as a whole. And I am really interested in the brands and products that are succeeding without websites at all. Mm-hmm. So products that have gotten TikTok famous, or maybe they have a website, but it's auxiliary compared, products that are just TikTok products basically. And yeah, now they have a website, but they didn't originally. Or people who have made millions of dollars doing influencer marketing, right? Like I think influencers, digital influencers, and influencers even that are, I think AI influencers is an interesting future space.
Yeah.
Terrifying, but also interesting. And so I think we really need to shake off, the shackles of history and of the way we've thought about SEO before. Because, when you search for something that if I were to search for something that I know is on TikTok a lot, the likelihood of the website ranking versus a TikTok video or a reel or an Instagram or whatever, because all of those things can usually be cross-posted across all the places. I think the website might come in 8th, and what we have great tracking on is the website. What we have less good tracking on is sometimes where people are discovering us and like how many times it takes them to see the brand on a couple different channels to actually make a decision and seek us out and search for us by the brand name and stuff like that. So I think we have to kind of get comfortable in this lack of data. And I don't know how to convince people that that's the reality, except to say that you've been operating on horrible data for years. Just don't, it's always been bad data. It's been directionally accurate at best.
So we got to grow as SEOs. We got to evolve as SEOs is the message that I'm getting. And, being more comfortable with other verticals inside digital marketing, really looking at how is your brand showing up, and to your point, I'm about to bring somebody on that's grown totally through influencer markerships and partnerships he's grown his own brand. It's a speaker brand, and, hundreds of thousands of valuable traffic, never done SEO, all brand searches, right? How are these brands growing? Because we got to be thinking about it differently. And the current set of skill sets that a lot of SEOs have, it's well, now you're telling me I need to be social media and I need to do this. And it's you do. I think everything's shifting. And a lot of people I've heard shedding off the SEO title and maybe becoming more of a digital marketing. We talked about relevancy engineering, that concept.
Well, and if you're not convinced by what I've already said, think about what would have happened if all of the companies that were hit by helpful content had a diverse set of traffic sources and a well-established brand that wasn't just getting traffic from Google. Mm-hmm. This is good business strategy, good marketing strategy. It's not just good SEO strategy, and it's not good, what is Mike call it? What engineering? Relevance engineering. Relevance engineering strategy. It's just good business strategy as a whole to not put all your eggs in the Google basket.
Yeah, no, I think everything is changing and broadening. Awesome. I would love to transition to what you do over at mobilemoxie.com. What you typically talk about. I think some of this stuff, this was the podcast that I really, you really did it to get people to shift gears, right? Everybody's talking about what's changing, but the reality is you got to make the shift to say there is there is a whole new way of looking at things. And I actually heard from a lot of different sources SEO is going to kind of go away and get integrated into everything else, those concepts, but it's just that broader business strategy of what you talked about. And you really put a great point on that. I would love to talk about more about what you're doing over at Mobile Moxie and how people can find out more of what you're talking about and your speaking talks and all that.
Yeah, sure. Well, so I'm going to agree before I get into my personal stuff. Like, I think SEO should have been integrated into all the different things for years now. Like, that's how SEO is done correctly. And I think it has been true for years. It needs to be at all of the different aspects of a marketing journey in a company need to be informed by SEO. And so that's kind of what I do. Is I'm a consultant. I help some of the biggest companies in the US and in the world with their SEO strategy. And that's what I'm doing, is usually like cross-functional, making sure the different people in the company are aware of SEO, understand how it works and what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong and what they can do to help and stuff like that. Educating internally to make sure everyone's singing from the same lyrics. So I do a lot of consulting. I do a lot of speaking and training around the world. I'm still, even though it sounds like what I'm saying, people might interpret it as me saying SEO is dead. I don't think SEO is dead. I think it's absolutely changing and evolving, and I'm here for that. I think it's exciting. I think it's also scary, but we've got to evolve or die, right? So that's what I'm helping my clients evolve and make sure that they're doing the best job they can to still show up in Google, but also be ready as all the AI systems come on board. I'm talking to clients and training people about the 4 S's, about how Google views journeys and journey modeling and how they're using that data. And then, of course, I have a tool set on mobilemoxie.com. And the tools that people love the best are called the Serperator and the Pagescope. The Serperator lets you see real live search results from anywhere in the world down to an address. Most tools just work on a postcode or whatever, but we can do it down to an address.
Cool.
And we show you the live search result of what it looks like right now. And we can track that over time. And we parse it with different metrics. So we do, if you set it up, we'll track the same search result over time and give you things like, your website's pixels from the top, percent of search. We let you claim things that aren't just your website. So we have a score called Moxie score. So you can say, this is me, this is me, this is me. And you can claim all the things in the search result that are actually you or benefit you. So if you're a restaurant and you're in a top 10 list, claim that. And that way SEO gets credit for everything SEO is doing and not just for the website, right? So if you have a YouTube video, a social. So this is kind of how I'm looking at the future, is this Moxie score concept of how much Moxie is how much do you own that search result? And then we also show AI overviews and stuff like that. So that's the Serperator, and the long-term tracking is called SERP Datalyzer. And then the Pagescope lets you track competitors, and it gives you a visual and then rendered and unrendered source code for whatever page on the internet you want. So it's like the Wayback Machine, but it's reliable, and you can say, get this page and get it daily, weekly, or monthly, whatever you want. And it's a great way to track your competitors, because if all of a sudden you lose rankings and your competitor gets above you and you didn't change anything, and Google didn't really have any big things, then you know that your competitor changed something, but you might not know what. And so we have all the code, all of the visuals, and we have a diff checker that'll let you say check rendered code from this day versus this day, and show me what's changed. And that way you can see, oh, they added schema, oh, they changed the title tag, or oh, they added this piece of content and that's why they're ranking, right? And so the hard part about selling those tools is that it's kind of like selling insurance to healthy people. People are like, oh, I don't need that, I'm doing fine. But by the time you need it, it's too late, because it's capturing things live as they are, but we can't go back in history. And that's the problem with any SEO troubleshooting. Your boss might come to you and be like, when did this happen? And they're showing you a search result and you're like, I don't know, I wasn't, So
the competitor rank tracking and the share of voice is, and the social listening tools are now a staple. You need to have those to be able to understand, because how these algorithms work is how you're doing versus what's going on in your marketplace in that area. So if you don't know where the weights are changing for the competitor, all those things impact you, even if you didn't do anything or
Exactly.
got a penalty or whatever, and now you tanked. It's not that you tanked, it's that other people
They do
shot
better.
ahead of you, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that those tools are really powerful if you understand that you need to be tracking competitor data of what they're doing. It's not, you're not in a vacuum. You gotta, it's all in comparison. And so
Yeah.
tools like that are super valuable.
Yeah, I think SEOs for years have been so focused on just their own website and what did we do to make it better or worse? And like maybe you didn't do anything. Maybe someone else just changed something and that helped. And they're all like, well, where is our website ranking? Well, where's what else is ranking that's influencing a searcher's journey, right? Like that's kind of what we want to capture. So yeah, those are the tools. They're really cheap. Actually, I think our lowest price is like 30 or 40 bucks a month. I don't know.
I would encourage people to go check it out. I, wanted to bring her on as well to talk more about how to use her tools and let her kind of walk me through it. So I got a little free demo here. So this is awesome. I would encourage everybody else to go check it out. You really should be looking at what competitors are doing. That's what's going to give you the insights. And some of these tools are absolutely powerful. So I would go check out Mobile Moxie. Cindy, I know you're active on LinkedIn. Is that the best place for people to find you?
No, actually, LinkedIn is the worst place. I get so much spam. The best place is unfortunately Twitter or email. I need to get better at LinkedIn, but I get so much spam there.
They've reduced the amount of connections. They've been really working on that signal. I do Twitter. Like if y'all are wanting to rank in Grok, like that's why he bought Twitter. If anybody wants to know, he needed a data set, and
Yeah.
Twitter. If we're talking about the information architecture, is somewhere you need to be. That's a lot, Cindy. What we're talking about with clients is like why you need to be all these different places and like where you're showing up, and like you got to really understand that market and understand what the competitors are doing and how people are searching for you. Twitter's great. My account got banned twice, so I've started over.
Well, and I know people have bad experiences on Twitter, but I tweet a lot of dog videos. Not my own dog, sometimes my own dog videos, but mostly I retweet dog videos, and my algorithm's great. So you just have to like retweet dog videos and you won't get the bad people on the Twitter.
Yeah. So Cindy, definitely give me your Twitter and we'll share that in the show notes. So hopefully everybody got a lot out of this podcast. There's two big takeaways for me, and you need to know that SEO is changing, and if you're struggling, which you may be because everything's new, it's because the game has changed. And you need to think of yourself as a digital marketer, a Swiss Army knife, multifunctional tool. You need to be able to be everywhere. You got to be able to explain that to your clients. If you're listening, please understand, like, it's not a one-trick pony with Google anymore that owns most of the market for people searching. So it's getting harder. There's other services and areas that you want to be optimizing for your brand. And then the biggest thing that Cindy said right there at the end is you really need to know what your competitors are doing. Like if you don't know what your competitors are doing, you're running blind. Cindy, I want to end this podcast with asking you, what is the biggest unknown secret? And you can repackage something we've talked about, but what would you say the biggest takeaway is for somebody listening that they need to be thinking about? Like, what's the one unknown secret of internet marketing in your book?
I think I'm thinking really hard. So I think that I have been successful because, and I've gotten a reputation for being able to spot and understand changes that Google is making and explain them before they're public knowledge, before they're announced. That's kind of my special skill, I think. And the reason I'm able to do that is I spend a lot of time looking at what Google is doing, what Google is publishing, what they're investing in, and what they're writing about. And that helps me connect the dots of going, oh, they're writing about this, but in SEO, they're talking about this. And how do those two things go together? And you think about it for a day or two, and then you're like, oh, that's how they go together. That makes sense. And that has really helped me be able to understand where Google is going. And I've gotten it right quite a number of times. So I would say, think like you were Google, and say, like, what would I be doing if I were Google? And then plan on them making reasonably intelligent, and I used to just say reasonably intelligent. Now I'd say reasonably intelligent and money-making decisions. Like, Google is really trying to make a lot of money right now, and they're changing their decision models in favor of making more money, where it used to be more on the don't be evil side. Now they're like, make more money. And that's cool. They're a business. They're allowed to do that. But how is Google going to monetize this is an important question.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, hopefully you enjoyed this podcast. Please Shiko us, share, like, follow us. Please leave a comment if you've got any value. Please tell us what you found valuable or what you want us to talk about. Thank you, Cindy, so much for coming on. Until the next time, everybody, my name is Matthew Bertram. Bye-bye for now.